This just in, Chris Mortensen reporting quarterback Kirk Cousins has recently appealed personally to the Washington Redskins owner Dan Snyder, asking for a trade without a long-term contract in place, league and team sources telling Mortensen. Snyder told Cousins that he should not anticipate a trade, the sources said, and the quarterback is prevented from negotiating with teams under the exclusive franchise tag he's placed upon him. Also, Adam Schefter adding that the Redskins have shown zero inclination to trade him and continue to insist that they will not. Stephen A., your reaction to this?
I applaud Kirk Cousins because even though he's been getting paid hand over foot over the last 2 years, $19.95 million last season, scheduled to make nearly $24 million this year. What he's saying is that over the long term dollars, long-term guarantees resonate with me and matter far more than 1 year at a time, even though those 1 year contracts have been exorbitant. What he wants is a franchise that shows enough faith in him to give him a long-term deal. It resonates with him because clearly there are question marks, and clearly an organization that he's passed for nearly 5,000 yards for last year doesn't believe in him enough to really secure his long-term future. He's saying he believes he deserves that, and as a result, he wants to move on elsewhere, particularly probably with somebody like Kyle Shanahan, who he played for, and I don't blame him for that one bit. I can understand it.
Yeah, I don't think it's as general as that. I think it's much more specific. I think he wants to go to San Francisco. That's what it sounds like to me, where there's a guy there who seems to believe in him, and therefore the franchise will give him the keys. That's what it sounds like to me.
All right, we'll leave it there. And guys, keep it moving because sources are telling our Adam Schefter that former Washington wide receiver DeSean Jackson expects to sign with Tampa Bay, assuming no breakdown in final negotiations. Last season was the third time in his career where he led the NFL in yards per reception. I know you had mentioned this, Max, as a good landing spot for DeSean Jackson. What does this move mean for Jameis and the Bucs?
Yeah. This was the best landing spot for him. Just reviewing the NFL, it looked like, boy, if he wound up in Tampa, that makes a lot of sense. Opposite Evans, you got a guy who goes up and gets those 50-50 balls, and then a burner who can get behind the defense, opening everything up. Look, does it put him ahead of the Falcons? The question with Tampa really is that defense. Were those takeaways, they had so many last year, does that regress to the mean? In other words, was some of that luck and it's not likely to happen again? Or was that somehow something intrinsic to the defense? Because if that defense is real this year, and now with DeSean Jackson, that gives Atlanta a real run for their money. Atlanta still special, different kind of level offense. But that makes Tampa, maybe the most intriguing team to watch of the teams on the come-up this upcoming season.
Well, I think where it benefits Tampa, Max, is that it opens the field up for not just Evans, but Brate, Humphreys, and those guys, not to mention the fact that facilitates the running game with Doug Martin, because what you can't do is crowd the line of scrimmage, cloud the blocks, and ultimately go after Jameis Winston more. It's going to serve to elevate their running game. It's going to help their short-range passing game. And more importantly, it's going to take some heat off of Jameis Winston because you've got a deep threat to be concerned about who, in my estimation, watching DeSean Jackson throughout the years, requires double coverage when he's going deep. This dude can fly, and you can't defend him one-on-one once he gets past those first 5 yards. He's just got too much speed, too much breakaway speed, too much quickness. It opens things up for Tampa. And if their defense is as legit as we believe it to be based on what we saw the latter part of last season, this is a big-time acquisition for them, and I think it could potentially propel them to the playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see how Carolina responds to that now that you consider Tampa and Atlanta in the same division. DeSean Jackson is not one of the best players in football, but he's one of the scariest players in football, and particularly on this team, on Tampa, he's, the ripple effect he could have on that offense is potentially sky high.
Guys, as you just alluded to, Stephen A., obviously this division is going to be no joke. So if we're putting Atlanta at the top, do you think this puts Tampa as a distant second?
Not a distant second, but listen.
I mean, ahead of the Panthers?
Well, I don't know, to be quite honest with you. That's my answer. But you got to remember, Carolina goes 15-1 one season, and the next thing you know, they're out the playoffs the next. The only team that has been consistent is the New Orleans Saints with their ineptness. They've been potent offensively, inept defensively, and as a result, they've been either third or fourth in the division consistently over the last several years. But when you look at Carolina and what are you going to get from Cam Newton, but more importantly, what are you going to get from that defense? The expectation expectations bloviated about the Atlanta Falcons, but they blow a Super Bowl, and you never know the residual impact of that, particularly now that they've lost their offensive coordinator as well. And then now you've got Tampa on the come up. It's a crapshoot right now. I think you're looking at the situation, and the only thing that you would assume is that New Orleans will end up in last place. There's nothing else that you will assume about the division.
Right. I mean, both the last couple seasons, you get the Super Bowl loser coming out of that division, but they're getting to the Super Bowl. The question with Carolina, I think, Molly, is do they address their issues in this offseason, namely the receivers? I mean, Coach was on the show yesterday, Herm Edwards, and those receivers just looked, there's no, how else do you say but lazy last season? And their running game, they're giving the ball to Cam and expecting him to do all the work. You got to have a running back to carry that load. It can't be your quarterback.
And you're going to need guys like Kelvin Benjamin to live up to expectations. Max, I want to stay with you on this one. On a much lighter note, in his debut with the Mets on Wednesday, Tim Tebow went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts and also grounded into a double play with the bases loaded. Tebow also was hit by a pitch, but was quickly doubled off first base. Max, grade Tim Tebow's performance, please.
A+.
Oh,
it was
Max.
Tim Tebow doing all that stuff. He was hitting home runs in batting practice. You have the other team on the top step of the dugout watching because he's taking batting practice, grounding into a double play. The whole thing is great. The only thing I'd like to see now, I want to see him play the outfield. I want to see him crash into the wall. I want to see his arm. Come on, it's Tim Tebow. Here's a better way. If it's not an A+, Molly, can you tell me anything else that happened in spring training for any team yesterday?
I was focused on NFL free agency and the Warriors losing. Sorry, I cannot.
Right. Right. Me too.
Max,
the only thing I know about baseball yesterday is Tim Tebow.
That's fair.
Max.
Yes.
Max's ridiculous explanation requires 2 things. Either he needs to be drug tested, or he's somebody that's a closet Cowboys fan because he's clearly concerned with the hype and nothing of substance whatsoever. I would, however, give Tim Tebow a C. I would not give him a failing grade. I thought he got hosed on that first strikeout. That third strike was not a strike. That was low and outside. He didn't deserve it. Then he grounds into the double play. A dude that grounds into a double play gets a standing ovation and high fives from his teammates. I guess because he brought the runner from third home. He wasn't awful. He made contact. I give him credit for that. But in the end of the day, his bat speed looked slow. He has a long way to go. Clearly doesn't belong at a major league level. But I was happy for him. He seems to be improving, and I'll give him credit for that. I give him a C.
Yeah, it's hard not to root for him.
When Stephen A. Smith gives Tim Tebow a C, you know it was an A+.
Max, all I know is I wish you were my teacher. He is your friend.